Good morning, everybody. How are we doing today? It is Monday. It doesn't feel like Monday. I honest to God thought it was Tuesday, but it is a Monday morning here at United vs. Everybody. I am your host, Sean, and I swear I know what day it is. I may not know the date all the time, but I do know what day it is now. Now I do. But we're back this morning with another news roundup. You guys know we squeeze these in now and then. This week's jam-packed with Wednesday match against Ipswich and then a weekend FA Cup draw against Fulham. So busy week, but you guys know we're going to stop by and get your thoughts on the news. Danny B in the house. How are you doing this morning, Danny? How are things going? Are you getting a little better weather like we are? It's going to be super warm. I say super warm today. It's relative, right? Compared to like single digits from the other week, it's going to be in the upper 40s here today. So my sinuses are looking forward to that, but I know my dogs will be because we'll get to walk. But in any case, we have a few odds and ends, a few bits and pieces to touch on this morning as we prepare for this busy match week. Be sure to come back tomorrow, though. We are going to be previewing the Ipswich match against the Traptor Boys. So we're going to dive in. How are you guys feeling about City losing Liverpool yesterday? You guys conflicted. I know it's always one of those bittersweet things, right? Because it's hilarious as United fans to watch Pep kind of implode and City kind of collapse. Not that anybody else is going to talk about it because the media doesn't care about City. But at the same time, you're like, okay, well, it also puts Liverpool closer to a title as they keep pushing. And what are they, like 11, 15 points? I don't remember how many points ahead Liverpool are right now. But are you conflicted about that? How are you feeling about that? Are you still just laughing? It's funny, but I don't laugh too much when City struggle, just simply because I don't really consider City to be rivals. Almost the same way I don't consider Chelsea. I would consider Liverpool, obviously, Arsenal before City and Chelsea, just from the nature of the way that things are going on. But you guys let me know, because it is still funny. We can chuckle a bit. But how bad is Savinho, by the way? Oh my gosh. You have to bend the rules to get this guy to your club, and he's just utter crap, like absolute garbage, Savinho. Like, this guy sucks. But let's move on. Hit that like button for me, please. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. We are on the road to 3K. Check out the memberships to learn how you guys can get involved in some of the content we put out, like yesterday's video, which was a fun conversation. I enjoyed getting your guys' thoughts on that. So go check that one out if you haven't yet. But you can have a say in those kind of things, what we talk about, what kind of scouting reports I do, and things like that. Go check out the memberships to learn how. We're going to start things off, though, with a little bit of a hater silence for all the Bruno hate that goes on, because some of you might leave when I start talking about this, but that's fine. But I can't argue with the statistics, because I don't get the Bruno hate. I know a lot of people will isolate on the way he whines on the pitch, or his lack of positioning and stuff. I've criticized it as well, but to isolate one characteristics and extrapolate that to a whole player is weird. But he's the stats don't lie. Like, since he really started to burst on the scene, the Sporting, the guy has had double-digit goals, assists in every single season. This 8 consecutive seasons, this guy has contributed double-digit assists. Even after joining United, I mean, he's got 89 goals, 78 assists for United in just 167 goal involvements in just 271 appearances for the club. The guy has done nothing but deliver, and it's honestly it's criminal that he hasn't gotten more assists. It's criminal that he's not in the talk for world class. If this were any other midfielder, people would be calling him world class with those sort of numbers. I mean, since he joined United, literally 2021 season, he had 28 goals, 18 assists. Like, that's insane. If that were literally any other midfielder, people would be calling him world class. And if he were at any other club, he'd probably have more titles, more trophies by now. Kind of reminds me a lot of Heung-min Son in that regard. Like, Sonny at any other club would probably have gotten a little bit more silverware to show for it. It is what it is. But again, despite the numbers, this is why one player is never enough at a club. No matter how good they are, it does not matter. Danny B says, I was wrong. He's probably best in the 8. Bruno, yeah, I think he is better in the 8. We just don't really play with an 8. In this system, the pivot has too much work to do. So if we played with like that 3-5-2, Danny, or like I think that when you'd maybe get a little bit more, I don't say more, maybe you'd get the best out of Bruno. when he's not having to drop back. He can drop back to pick up the ball, but to have him to track back and to get involved. But then again, his defensive numbers have been good too, so what the hell do I know, right? But because he plays in the 8 for Portugal, I believe. But one person who I do think could play in the 8, or in the pivot, is a player that I spoke a little bit about yesterday. I put out a post yesterday to guys go check out Club Brugge as they played Standard Liège. So that brings us to a little scout report. So I talked about that yesterday a little bit in the stream, and I put it out there. His name is Arden Jashari, and he deserves your attention because this dude is an absolute freaking boss. Morning, Jules. How are you? Good to see you again. Just caught me in time to start with a little bit of a scout report, and then I just threw out a bunch of stats to silence all the Bruno hate because I don't get the Bruno hate. But this guy is an absolute baller. Now, you'll see, if you notice, so Club Brugge, he plays for Club Brugge. He plays in that pivot for them. He plays in that deeper role on the left-hand side. Box, good morning, Box. How are you doing? He plays primarily as a holding defensive mid, but he's so mobile. He's just 22, very, very good. Now, you'll notice right away that I have a major characteristics outlined, a characteristics that I don't put on a lot of players. This characteristic of complete midfielder is something that I reserve for just a few, and like Declan Rice to me would be a complete midfielder, that sort of thing. Arden Jashari is a complete midfielder. Passing, dribbling, playmaking, his work rate, his leadership, his press resistance, his defensive output. The guy does it all, and he does it all very, very well. And like Danny says, yeah, he's class. Excellent ball progression, passing. The guy, like I was watching him yesterday, obviously Club Brugge lost, but this ball progression is just a thing of beauty to watch. He just joined Club Brugge this summer for just 6 million euros, and he spent the last 4 seasons prior to that in the Swiss League with Luzern. He was actually Luzern's youngest captain ever, similar to like Ruben Neves in that way. 9th in that league for big chances created last season. So again, excellent playmaker. He's quick, he's energetic, he's so good on the ball, excellent passing range, excellent dribbling, defensive output. Again, he operates mainly in that pivot, like I said, but he also can operate as the deepest midfielder too, in like a midfield 3. He can be that lone 6 if you need him to. He's getting used to life at Club Brugge. He started a little slow, but then he slowly got acclimated, and he's been an absolute baller in the last couple months. And this is a Club Brugge side that loses its best players kind of each year. They just lost Nusa this past summer as well. Bjorn Meyer, I think, is either injured or he left. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's one of those clubs that does get picked apart. They lost De Ketelaere a few years back as well. Already in the team of the week once, and he was man of the match against Union St. Gilloise in October again. In that match, he provided an assist, 7 out of 7 long balls. Again, there's that ball progression, 4 out of 5 tackles, 2 interceptions, 7 of 9 duels, and he completed 64 of his 67 passes in that match in October that earned him man of the match. The guy is an absolute beast. His performance against Atalanta in their second leg in the UCL this week in the Champions League earned him a spot in the All-Star 11 for the Champions League second leg of that round, too. The guy was a beast. He was actually looked at by Atalanta and Juventus in January, but he's been so good for Club Brugge this season. He's already hit the ground and doing his big. They've already extended his contract after just 6 months, so it's going to take a little bit more to pry him out of there. We're probably looking at like 25-30 million to get him out of there, honestly. Jules says, what's his value? Now, his value is interesting, right? Because you can look at like Transfer Market and they'll tell you his value is like 11 or 12 million, but then that usually is not the case. It's probably going to take, again, somewhere between 25, 30, even maybe 35 with add-ons to get him out of the Club Brugge right now. Brugge sold De Ketelaere a few years back for like 30, 35. And while the attackers tend to be a little more high value, what Jashari brings, in my opinion, is just he is your starting midfielder in the pivot. He could easily play in any midfield anywhere. Like I said, he is very similar to a Declan Rice in the way he plays. And like Danny says, he doesn't have many weaknesses at all. I guess if the only thing you can do is you call it a weakness is just maybe just not at a huge club yet, but he's shown that he can do it in the Champions League as well. So it's like the guy's a boss, man. If we could get him and like a Hayden Hackney in, or even like or Jashari and like Angel Gomez on a free, that's midfield locked up for a minute. And like Danny says, yeah, around 25 million. He's so good, y'all. I mean, I can't describe it enough. He's so good. I just threw out a y'all. Bach says, I remember him getting called up for the Qatar World Cup. Yeah, he is absolute boss. Yeah, and like Bach says, he knocked out Atalanta. Like he's excellent. I think he would be very good in this midfield personally. Danny says him and Friendrip at Genoa. I like that. Yeah, I remember you were asking me about Friendrip a little bit ago. We were linked with Friendrip in the summer, I think. And Danny says, yeah, you saw that you mentioned that there, Ordonez. He gave away a pen yesterday, a little bit with a handball, but he's young. It is what it is. Everybody does that every now and then. But go check out Jashari if you get a chance to watch him for Bruges. Watch him, watch the way he plays, and tell me that he would not slot right into this midfielder. He's so mobile. He's so involved in everything. He's can stick and attack, and he's so press resistant. Like he wiggles out of like 3 defenders all the time. He just is good at dropping the shoulder, good at getting his body in between the ball and the opposition, and just finding the space. Like I would feel, if I were a player, I would feel so calm with him on the pitch, on my side. So excellent player. Go check out Jashar if you guys get a chance. You guys know I like to throw in the scout reports now and then, but yeah, Danny says he's class. That's probably the best word I could say. You know, aside from complete midfielder, he's class. Like the kid is class. He's one of those midfielders that you know is going to go to like Benfica or something like that, or like Leipzig or something in the next year or so, and then he's just gonna explode. Like that's just the route, the path that I see for him. Yeah, and exactly, Dan. He's perfect to play alongside Ugarte again. He is what Declan Rice is doing for Arsenal. Like this guy can do for us. He's so good. But go check him out because this guy is an absolute baller. I keep saying that. I just can't stop. Like, we're going to move on because obviously the big news that you saw in the thumbnail is this report coming from journalist Jacques Talbot, who I do have a bit of time for, reporting allegedly that Paul Pogba has now personally spoken with Ruben Amorim. United are also allegedly prepared to offer a 1-year contract, and the club would like to negotiate a lower salary that includes lots of bonuses. So no more of the high salaries, obviously. Now, a lot of us probably saw this news and were like, wait a second, Sir Jim just was highly critical of Casemiro. Well, the Casemiro deal is different in that he was offered a long contract. He was offered a huge salary, and that's what we don't want to do. 1-year contract, club's trying to get a low salary with lots of incentives and bonuses, probably performance related included in there, reportedly from Talbot. He says 20K a week. Yeah, I can imagine if this was true, it would probably be something along like the 125K a week or something, maybe taking it up to like, I don't know, like 200 with bonuses, but it's a bit interesting. Pogba chat got a little feisty. Yeah, the Pogba chat always does get feisty. The Pogba chat tends to be divisive. I saw someone the other day report that we were trying to propose a kind of pay-as-you-play contract for Pogba, but the report was that he rejected that. I mean, I don't know how, if I'd want to. I mean, in a pay-and-you-play contract, yeah, you're going to get paid if you play. You have to train. You're getting tree training, and you kind of have to show up. But what do you guys think of Pogba? We did that poll the other day on the channel when some of these reports first came out, right? And like 80% of you did not want Pogba back at the club, even as a free agent. And I mean, you guys know how I feel. I wouldn't want Pogba back. I just don't see how he fits personally. I mean, forget the constant circus that Pogba and Raiola created all the time for us, especially when he was on international duty. Forget the annoyance that we let him go for free, paid a record fee to bring him back, and then lost him for free again. Forget that. Forget that he doesn't really suit the system that we play right now. I don't see him playing in this system anywhere. Forget that he's defensively non-existent. Like, he's just worse than Christian Eriksen when it comes to defending, especially against the quick-paced counterattack. Forget that he has zero press resistance when he's like in our very delicate area of the pitch. You guys remember how many times he lost the ball just taking 87 touches on it? Forget all that. The guy was always injured, constant hamstring, constant ankle issues. He missed 107 matches during his time at United. 107 for club and country. The guy was constant, and it was always the same exact issues. And that was when he was match fit. He hasn't played since September 2023, and his last match he played less than 30 minutes. He's just not fit, and he wasn't fit at United even when he was fit. Like, that's just the way it is. I'm tired of the injury prone. It's surprising how many people just completely forgot about how injury prone Pogba was at United. But he's apparently supposed to save our season, according to a lot of people online. It's ridiculous. Danny says, now way too much. Yeah, I do agree. It's way too much. That's just what realistically I would ever see happening if this were to come back, because Pogba's not going to come back for less. He can go get more than that in the Saudi League or something. Way more than that. Rich, welcome, Rich. How are you doing? Just talked about this and had someone crying in the comments. Well, people like to cry. Sometimes you do need a good cry. It just is what it is. Standards FC when we're 15th. Yeah, I mean the Standards FC things was interesting, but yeah, I just don't see what Pogba does. He didn't do a ton for us when he was here because he was hardly ever fit. But and he says, it lessens the game time for Kali or Kone. Yeah, I think Kone would offer a little bit more in terms. We just don't play the way if Ollie or Jose were still here, I would maybe be a tiny bit more open to this, just simply because of the way that they play. If Pogba were to go to Aston Villa, he would do fine because they play the system that he plays. That's just the way. If he were to go to Liverpool, same exact thing. They just play a hoof it and run kind of football. It just is what it is. Rich says, people can have their opinions, but some people struggle if others have a different one. Welcome to life, Rich. That's life, right? That's just how it is, and it's funny to me the inability of people to just kind of have a conversation or even just maintain relationships with people with whom they disagree about certain things. And that's life. I mean, I see a lot of people struggle with this all the time with my job, right? As a therapist, part of it is teaching people how to react, how to coexist with others that they disagree with, how to handle it when people disagree with them, and stuff like that. Like it's human nature, but I think that fan bases, I think the inherent tribalism of being a fan plays into it. I think that right now as a United fan, there is so much negativity. It does feel like just everybody is constantly just like the baseline for everybody's frustration and agitation and irritability is just at an all-time high right now as United fans. And I think that is more of a culmination of like a couple decades in the last 10 years, especially. It's kind of coming to a head. And I think that United fans can't ignore what they see at other clubs. But I think people need to remember, like we discussed yesterday in that Ruben Amorim video, that clubs like Liverpool are well into a rebuild. They've been put together over the course of the better part of a decade. City have been doing the same thing. Arsenal have been working with Arteta for 5-6 years now. We are just in like literally the first few months of a rebuild under a new manager. It's going to take time, and I think people need to be patient. Then he says, forget that he hasn't played in a high level for 5-6 years, and that's probably was juicing to get into that level. Nah, thanks. Yeah, and I didn't even mention the substance stuff. Yeah, I'm good on Pogba. I'm all good there. You guys let me know though, because the thing that people seem to be overlooking is just the fact he missed over 100 matches for us when he was here. Guy was never fit, and it was the same kind of issues that we're seeing with Mason Mount. It's just these hamstrings and these ankles. They're just constantly issues for him. Box says, I'd rather give Kone, Morehouse, Fletcher some game time. Yeah, I would do that. Rich says, I'm only taking Pogba on a super low salary, and I doubt he accepts that. Yeah, he could. I'm surprised Pogba isn't already in the Saudi League doing. Obviously, he can't play until next month, but I'm surprised he's not there or at Miami or something, or LA. Going to LA could suit him as well. I'm not taking him. We already did that poll the other day, so and if you guys want me to do another poll, we can do another poll. But we did a poll the other day, and 80% of you did not want Pogba. So. But it was interesting coming from Jacques Talbot. I personally don't want that, but it is what it is. Moving on to some other transfer news regarding strikers. So United reportedly are attentive to Osimhen and Gyökeres, and they are asking to be informed on a weekly basis with updates regarding contract situation and plans and everything for these two strikers. This is coming from Fabrizio Romano, who also adds that what really is going to make the difference is budget. Now, this is why, again, when we look back at some of these Osimhen rumors, that I'm a little skeptical, especially when everyone keeps throwing out the release clause. If because we know that we're skint, we know that PSR is keeping us skint, we know that we've got debt. We talked about that last week when the financial results came out with the interest paid, the debt that we have, things like that. We're not going to pay a release clause for anybody, whether it's Lukeba, whether that's Osimhen. No one's getting a release clause paid. We can't afford that. And Osimhen is on 3 times the wages that Gyökeres is on. Like, this doesn't make sense. It's gone quiet on Gyökeres while the Osimhen rumors have continued to develop over the last week or so. But we'll see what happens. If I'd have to choose right now between the two, for me, it's definitely Gyökeres. I just think he's better. He's only on a third, like I said, of what Osimhen is paid per week. He knows amorim. He knows amorim's system. And he's played in England and did very well at Coventry. He and Chuba Akpom were going head-to-head on a couple dozen goals in the championship a few years back. He's very good. I wanted Gyökeres at United back when he was at Coventry. Rich, everyone getting the love. Danny says, don't want to hear budget excuses. That's why we went for Xerxes instead of Cunha last summer. It is probably a big contributing factor over why we did that. It's interesting, though, right? Because I don't get why we wouldn't have just gone for Cunha at that point. I don't remember what the price was, Dan. You can remind me what the reported price was for Cunha last summer. But I feel like if we're just going to overpay for Xerxes, but amortize that instead of paying the release clause, I don't know why we wouldn't just maybe do that for Cunha. Maybe the wages had a lot to do with it. I don't know, but Danny says best in class, my ass. I'm in before Danny throws out the Spinios comment. I know that's coming, but what would you guys do? You guys want Osimhen? You guys want Gyökeres? With the budget, we do know that the PSR is a thing. That's just the way it is. But if that is a thing, I can't see Osimhen doing anything. Danny B says 60, 65 for Cunha. Yeah, probably could have. I probably would have maybe pushed to make that work a little bit. But again, we were in a situation this summer where we couldn't get Ugarte over the line until we sold McTominay. We couldn't get Mizraoui over the line until we sold Wan-Bissaka. That's where we were. I don't know where we are in the 3-year window when it comes to the PSR stuff. But again, we've got to figure out a way to make some money because it's just not there. And again, it's not that Ineos don't want to spend the money on players, that they literally can't. But Dan says Cunha first. Yeah, I do like Cunha a lot. Box says I'm skeptical of any signing. Oh no, he's been burned one too many times. Box. Oh no, sorry, bud. Yeah, I mean, a lot of these players, I want to say they've been underwhelming. De Ligt's taken a little longer to. I mean, De Ligt's not been bad. Like, it's not to say De Ligt's been bad. He's taken a little longer to show me what he used to be because I really like De Ligt a lot. I think he's a class defender. Mizraoui looked excellent as a right back. He's definitely dropped down a level, having to fill in at center back and whatnot. In my opinion, I'm not saying, again, he's not bad. He just doesn't look as good at center back as he does at right back, and he definitely doesn't look great at a right wing back. Ugarte, I'm not going to complain about Ugarte. Obviously, he's got his goal on the weekend. He was solid, as he always is. The only time I've seen Ugarte play a bad match was like a week or two ago, and he was just kind of second to everything. But even then, he was still one of our better players on the day. Who else did we sign in the summer? Oh, Xerxes. Hit or miss on Xerxes. He has games where he looks excellent, and then he has games where he just goes missing and can't really do anything. So what are you going to do? Danny says, if we're paying big money, probably one player has to be Cunha. Yeah, and like you're saying, like we spoke about this the other day, he can play multiple positions and has that killer instinct. I think that's really what's going to make a difference. If we can find players like Cunha who can play up top, who can play in one of those 10 roles if needed, that's going to help, because it could, like, in the short term, at least save you a little bit of money. You don't have to go out and buy a 10 and buy a 9 at the same time. You can maybe find a way to work with what you have a little bit and then maybe reassess that in January or the summer. But Jewel says, De Ligt has been our best defender this season overall, though he still has some things to improve, such as reaction to the rebounds off the keeper. Yeah, we've all the defenders have to improve on that, because that's been garbage. Maguire has been really bad at that as well. De Ligt, kind of lost track of Maddison against Spurs. And I think that I would argue that Licha was our better defender. And I think I'm not worried about the lid at all. Again, this isn't me complaining about the lid or saying he's bad. He doesn't look as good as he did at like Ajax, for instance, when he was like 6 years younger. So, but I'm not worried at all about the lid. I think it was a good signing. I just, I was hoping that we would have caught up the speed a lot quicker. Fox says, how much would Cunha and Delap? You want both? A lot, probably a lot. I don't know off the top of my head what. It just depends on if Ipswich get relegated, which looks likely. Wolves aren't exactly safe either. Danny said, anyone notice the weight Xerxes lost? I did not. Did it look like he dropped a little bit? Maybe that has to do with just getting back up to speed a little bit. Interesting. Rasta says, welcome, Rasta. I hate the fact that Scousers bastards going to have the same amount of titles like us. I hate Liverpool. Yeah, we all hate Liverpool. That's what I asked early on. Are you guys conflicted about City losing to Liverpool yesterday? I mean, we can take a moment to laugh at Pep and their collapse, and Savinho, who is crap, by the way, but at the same time, it just puts Liverpool that much closer to another league title, which is not fun. Danny says it's going to cost 110 at least for Cunha and Delap. So 110 on paper, up front, probably not anywhere near that, because you can split that cost up, because we're not going to be paying the release clause of Cunha as low as it is. That's not going to happen because we just can't afford it. But if we played a release clause for Cunha, it would literally be just Cunha or just Cunha and maybe a couple free signings. That's about it. Jules says, Maguire's lack of mobility has cost us a lot recently. His lack of mobility has cost us in years, but his ability, like he played when he played recently against City, he was solid. He did everything he needed to do. Just got rid of those aerial balls. I mean, he wins a lot of aerial duels. He's just not good on the ball, and he's not quick, and he doesn't attack the ball on these set pieces, which has been a criticism I've had for Maguire more than anything. I don't care as much about Maguire's lack of pace. The problem is not his lack of pace; it's the system that we're playing him in. If Maguire were at Everton, for instance, he would look just fine. You can't ask him to be quicker. It's not going to happen. The guy's 31 years old. He is what he is at this point. But that's why you've got two other center backs around. Now we lost Licha, who was our best defender in my opinion in the system, especially. But De Ligt, Mizraoui, and Euro can probably continue to do a job there. But Maguire, again, I've said, between Evans, Lindelof, and Maguire, all of whom were reportedly going to be for free in the summer, Maguire would have definitely been the one I kept. And he says, yep, thought so. Difficult unless we sell. Then he says, Slab cannot be here next year. Yeah, if in a perfect world, we would get rid of all three and bring in a couple, like a Bashali, maybe like an Ignacio or a Lukeba or something who wants to leave. But again, you guys, just because I say these things doesn't mean that necessarily that's always what I want. Like that's what I would choose my plan A. It's just I filter everything through the situation that we're in right now, whether that's the system, whether that's the finances, whether that's how much you can actually realistically do in the summer, because all that is ever present. It's the reality that we live in. So yes, it would be cool if I could say, let's sign this player, this player, this player, let's get them all out of here. But it just doesn't work like that. This ain't a video game. Boxes. I feel sick, to be honest, about Liverpool winning the title. Well, Arne Slot and Ruben Amorim walked into very different situations at their respective clubs. We talked a little bit about that yesterday in the video. Arne Slot was another, data analytical appointment similar to Jurgen Klopp, that's why he literally, no pun intended, slotted right in, because it was very similar. He's made a couple different tweaks. He's got him paying a little patient here and there, but for the most part, the guy who sat here and complained last week about how many teams play long balls against him, that's literally not only what Klopp did for 9 years at Liverpool, that's what Arne Slot does too. So it is what it is. Big up, Darko. Good to see you, my friend. Welcome back. Danny says, we're not progressing at top four, even with Slab being first choice. Yeah, I don't see us getting top four. To be fair, we did get a top four a couple times with Maguire in the squad. And we did make it to a Europa League final with Maguire. So, I mean, to be fair, I'm not saying Maguire was the reason. I'm just saying that it's the reality of what happened. But no, we could definitely improve. I don't think I liked Maguire when he was at Hull. I thought we should have signed him when he was at Hull, not waited until he went to Leicester. I think that the price tag, the armband, I think a lot of that kind of crippled his United career before it really got going. But that's a mentality thing again, and that's more of a criticism on him. So he took the armband off him and he looks just fine, but put the armband on him and it's like he has to try a little harder and do things that he really isn't comfortable doing. And just don't play him in a high line, and don't ask him to build out from the back, especially when you're playing against the high press, because he shits the bed every time that happens, man. Um, thing is, that's a year ago. He got worse, and maybe it's just he's getting older. I mean, he had his first big injury not that long ago, which before then he was pretty much always fit for us, aside from like that Europa League final. But Darko says if we had Slot, we would be in Liverpool positions at the moment. I definitely disagree with that, Darko. I love you, man, but I definitely disagree. I don't care who the manager was, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday. Who would have come into the situation at United and done any differently? Who would be in first place right now with the shit that we're in right now? I just disagree. I don't think that any manager could come in and do this. What Slot walked into was a squad that was already in 9 years built, had a vision, had a culture, who had already won things, full of class players like Salah, for instance. And it did any similar manager to what Klopp and what Slot are doing, any similar manager who plays that way. I mean, remember Liverpool were looking at Ruben Amorim, and they decided not to because of the system. It would be a whole different system, and it would require everything. They wanted to keep going, keep progressing, so they brought in a manager that kind of suited that identity, and that's what they did. But I don't. Yeah, if Slot would have come in, he'd be dealing with the same shit that Ten Hag dealt with, the same shit that Amorim is dealing with. It would be dealing with the same exact shit, and I don't think we'd be playing any different. His style might suit these players a little bit more, but at the same time, we can't sit here and say, the players are downing tools, the players are crap, we need to sell them, but then turn around and say, well, we need to cater to the players then. Which one is it? At some point, we have to make a decision and switch from what we've been doing. Now, I do think these players suit a counterattacking system better, but it is what it is. We can't ask Ruben Amorim to stop what he's doing and then start playing counterattacking football, because that only lasts a certain point too. When the results start dipping, the players start giving up like they always do. But let's move on to some financial stuff, because we talked a little bit about the financial stuff recently after, like I said, last week when a lot of the reports came out. Kieran Maguire did that sit down with United View and Flex. We talked a little bit about what Laurie Whitwell had to say about Sir Jim and whatnot. But revisiting some of the financial issues, so Must put out a little piece on Substack. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with Substack. It's like a blog thing, I guess, but their post referred a lot to something that the Swedish Ramble put out. So again, preface this, it's Must. So we have to assume that there's not going to be a ton of objectivity. Must in the 1958, when they talk about the club, there's not really a whole lot of positivity. And not, to be fair, there's not a whole lot of positive, Jim, but it helps to know who the author is, what the source is, because that sometimes can tell you a lot about their perspective on things. But anyway, they had a little bit more to add to some of the financials. So United's pre-tax losses, they jumped a lot. They jumped to 33 million from just 6 million pounds last year. Our revenue took a 41 million hit, and so we are paying a lot of pre-tax losses. We lost a lot of that, and this was largely due to just simply not being in Champions League. The Champions League saw us miss out on 53 million pounds. That's a big chunk of revenue. And that's something this is why the club for so long has just prioritized top four, because they wanted that money. Now, I get it. It is important, but at the same time, when that's your mentality as a club, then that trickles down from the top. When for so long, the Glazers, Woodward were just like top four or bust, top four, you're sacked, or top four, or this, that, or the other thing. Like the players are going to start picking up on that. If it's top four, once top four is done, we can just start, half-assing it. And that's what we've seen. Look at the way the players we're playing now. I said against Everton in that first half, I said the other day in the reaction, this was the first time since Amorim's been here that I've shifted from thinking, okay, these players are just bad, to these players have given up. Like, they did not look like they were trying at all that first half, and that's embarrassing. That's a disgrace. Darko says, Slot knows about system playing more than anybody else, dictates games according to his preference. He isn't dependent on specialized players. Well, that's the Dutch in him. Dutch managers are famously system over player. They don't like the big names. They don't like the big egos, the big personalities. And Ruben Amorim is the same way. We saw when he's clearing out people at United. He did the same thing at Sporting. Now, what you're going to get with Slot, so Slot knows about the system playing more than dictates games. Yeah, that's what he's going to do. Now we'll see what happens at Liverpool. You know how things go when they lose Salah, when they lose Van Dijk, when they lose Trent, when they lose Robertson, when they lose all these players. We'll see how he adjusts because they're going to be when they lose Allison. They got Mamardashvili coming in the summer, and he was a very good pickup, but we'll see what happens because it seems like they brought him in. They're capitalizing on that one more year of the squad that they have, and then we'll see what happens when he has to actually start a rebuild. If it's going to be a smooth process or not. Now they didn't sign anybody this January. They didn't sign a ton of people in the summer, so maybe they're holding out and seeing what they have to work with. But and also, Slot didn't do anything at Feyenoord until Ten Hag went to United and left Ajax, so I'm just going to throw that out there as well. Dargo says, Slot used the same players efficiently, which Klopp refused. He stopped and replaced Klopp's hardcore metal football with the approach involving attack when needed and defend as a unit. I mean, that's just football, though, Darko. You attack and then you defend as a unit. Now, again, Slot inherited a squad that had spent 8 or 9 years under Jurgen Klopp, upping that stamina, replacing players who couldn't hang, and with players who were physically there, who were up and down the pitch constantly. They do still play a lot of long ball. If you watch them play, that's a big part of how they play. They've tweaked it a little bit. They've gotten Conor Bradley involved a little bit more in making some inside runs and freeing up, but they still, all that's doing is freeing up space for Salah to receive the pass as well. Salah does track back a little bit more now. He probably is a better defender than Trent, but again, I'm not saying Slot is a bad manager. I've never said that. I'm just saying that what he walked into and what guys like Ten Hag or Ruben Amorim walked into is very, very different. And I do not think that Slot coming to United would have automatically meant we would be where Liverpool is right now. That's all I'm saying. So, but again, missing out on £53 million this year because not being in Champions League is a big hit. We did decrease wages by £22 million, but that was, again, simply because of how crap we are. The decrease in wages is because we got rid of a few players, but then there was a decrease in performance-based bonuses for the current squad. So shocker there. You don't play well, you don't get your performance-based bonuses. So whenever people are talking about like Rashford's on 375K, he's not. He was on 300. Bonuses are 75K. We're not paying the bonuses because Rashford wasn't playing. Rashford was not playing well. When you don't play well, you don't get your bonuses. So that was why we saw a decrease in the wages as well. So a little better there. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get the wage bill into a more sustainable, a more manageable, bite-sized chunk. It's going to take time because of the way things were done going into this. The real worry, though, is that the amount of required on interest payments is increasing, and it will continue to do so. You can't just spend the whole time you're in this debt paying the same amount. The amount is going to be increasing as we go on. We're paying a lot, which means more money is going to have to be allocated to servicing the debt that the Glazers have put on the club rather than being put towards improving anything else. And that's a big part of why things are being cut left and right, is there's just so much debt and the interest is increasing and it's going to be increasing, and we have to get a hold on that somehow. Until that debt is paid, things are going to get worse. They're not going to get better. It's really, really hard. Danny B says, Slot would have got us Europa or Conference League just like Eric Ten Hag would have done, set up mid-low block counter-attacking football. Yeah. Dutch managers are very, very, like I said, system over player, total football. These players at United, they can't play total football. Players at United aren't going to attack and defend. They're not going to put in work on and off the ball. That's just the way it is. So that's why it didn't work under Ten Hag. It's not going to work under Slot. But yeah, so the financial situation only getting worse. A big part of that is missing out on Champions League. That did hurt us. And then those interest payments are going to increase. It's not going to get any better. There's not, I wish there was a simple solution. The simple solution would be find somebody who's got, a billion to blow and pay the debt. But that's just not, no one's going to want to do that. If I were a billionaire, I wouldn't come in and automatically jump ahead of the queue to pay off debt that the previous owners accumulated. I wouldn't be excited to do that. I'd be trying to find ways to get that down to a bite-sized chunk and trying to find ways, which is what this financial guy we talked about was Mark Armstrong, trying to find ways to increase revenue, so it's not all coming out of my pocket. I wouldn't be in a hurry to open up my wallet and fork over $1 billion to pay off debt that the Glazers accumulated. I think it is absolutely criminal that they have been allowed to put that debt onto the club instead of having to be responsible for it themselves. I think that is absolutely criminal. I think that that should be illegal. They should be thrown in prison for that. I think that there should be a way to find a way to make them pay. But again, that being said, Sir Jim and his team knew all this. They were given time to go through the books, the accounts, and everything before they signed the paper, before they shook the guy's hand. So it's on them now to figure out a way out of it. So I feel for them a little bit in the fact that it wasn't their debt, but at the same time, no one put a gun to your head and forced you to take over the club. So now it's on you to figure it out. So it is what it is. Robert Reed, welcome back. He says it is illegal now. It doesn't help us now. Yeah, same with Chelsea. The way Chelsea did their signings, right, in the last couple of years. Now that's you're not allowed to do that anymore. So it's such a shame that the Glazer rule wasn't in effect. I don't feel like that should have ever been allowed. We did the if you guys remember, we showed you the charter. I'll put it back up here while we're talking. The charter, the owner's charter for the Premier League, and there are things in that charter that honestly the Glazers have violated. Mainly the part down here where it says we will run our club in an economically sustainable, and socially responsible manner. Like that, to me, is the exact antithesis of what the debt situation is and how the leverage buyout was allowed to happen and what we're at now. We're not at a place right now where we are sustainable. In my opinion, according to this owner's charter that is put out by the Premier League, they are not abiding by the rules. I mean, and you guys can let me know how you feel about that, but that's just where I'm coming from. And we put that up last week, but you guys know I put sorry, I was just making sure that was fixed. When I did my my book stream a few months, was it January that went live? I think that went live when I was gone. There was a book, The World's Biggest Cash Machine. You guys go check that out. It's all about how the Glazers got to own the club and whatnot. But I don't know what OPM stands for. Darko, Slav will only get better next season and will be unstoppable. He will easily and smartly replace Salah when he leaves. And Virgil van Dijk is easily replaceable as Konate is his replacement. Trent is crap. Well, this is the thing. At Liverpool, the manager doesn't get that big a say. And so, like, Jurgen Klopp didn't want Mo Salah. He wanted Julian Brandt. Liverpool don't operate like United have operated. This is what I mean. This is the difference. Liverpool when they started that rebuild, they did it the proper way, based on the culture, the identity, the vision that they wanted for the club. And Klopp was a part of that. It wasn't like, let's bring in Klopp and then let's do what he wants. That's what we've done. Let's bring in Louis van Gaal. What do you want, Louis? Let's bring in Jose. What do you want, Jose? Like, that's why every single year there was no plan. There was zero plan. Liverpool had a plan. Slot is part of that plan. Slot is not the plan, if that makes sense. And that's the difference in clubs that are run very, very well and clubs like United. That's just the way it is. And I think they struggle for top four if Slot's not back properly. Yeah, they can continue the momentum, but again, I'm not saying they're automatically gonna drop. I'm saying it's going to be interesting to see what happens when they lose a lot of these players that have been a major part of the rebuild, that have been a major part of their success, and arguably are the best players in that squad, aside from Virgil van Dijk. Anyway, moving on. Dargo's Deshaun, when Slot came in, he improvised, but Amorim changed it completely. That's the difference. Well, Amorim didn't change it. Amorim just brought his system. And that's why Liverpool didn't go with Amorim, not because they think he's bad, but because of the time and the cost it would have taken to build under a totally new system, a totally new formation. And I said this when Amorim was appointed. I was worried about the difference, the cost it was going to take and the time it was going to take to rebuild. It doesn't mean I worry about Amorim. It's just in a club that's already skinned, in a club that has a lot of deadwood, because Liverpool didn't have the deadwood like we have, it's going to take time. Liverpool very smart. When they couldn't get Van Dijk, they didn't just say, "Oh, let's go spend 80 million on this player and then we'll have to replace him." They went and got free signings, like what's his face? I forget his name now. The Cameroonian that they got rid of, that they lost for free. And then they had who's the Slovenian guy? Estonian defender, Ragnar Raver or something. I forget his name now. They got those guys for cheap or for free until they were able to get their guy, and that's the difference as well. Danny says the scummiest lowlives in the world are the Glazers. Yeah, they're not. They're like there's so many things I wish that I could say that I'm not going to say about the Glazers, because again, there are more important things in football, but at the same time, it's freaking annoying. Robert says other people's money, gotcha. Find a way to pay the debt back without bringing Ineos money in, and that's what wealthy people do, man. That's what billionaires do. You don't. I've said it many times in the channel. I've said it many times in life. You have to be cheap to be rich. That's just the way it is. If you can find a way to make money without spending money, that's what you're going to do, and that's how billionaires get to be billionaires. You don't get to be billionaire by just blowing money unnecessarily. That's just not smart. Um, and so I understand that, that's part of it. But at the same time, I've also said that football clubs are like the one thing, the one business in the world that isn't a business. It's like the one business that success is not measured on a spreadsheet. It's measured on the pitch. It's measured in the trophy cabinet. That's what it is. That's success. That's just like you look at big clubs, who've got, owners like look at the City. I'm not trying to compare, but like the owner invested a lot. He spent it, and they've got trophies now. The question is, how legitimate are those trophies? We're going to find that out hopefully soon. But that's where the success is, and you can't run it like your petrochemical company. You can't run it if you're the Glazers like your real estate bullshit. Now, fair play to the Glazers. They've done nothing but make money, but it's just the focus has been completely wrong for years. Darko says Glazers brought new managers and new players, gave big money for new players, approved high wages. They were let down by the people running the club. Their fault is to not run the club themselves. Yeah. The Glazers, I mean, the way that things have been happening for the last well over a decade now could literally be a whole textbook on how not to run a football club. It's embarrassing. Danny says 100%. Yeah. I mean, again, if I stumble upon a nugget of sense now and then in my rambling, fair play to myself. I just kind of speak and let it go. Let's see if we've got any other news here. So we're sweating right now on the fitness of Mazraoui. He did pick up a bit of a knee issue against Everton. He's going to be undergoing tests today, it sounds like, to figure out if he can play on Wednesday. So we'll see what happens. I was just looking to see if any news came up regarding Mazraoui, but I don't see anything as far as the news goes. But we could be without Mazraoui on Wednesday. We'll see how serious that issue is when the tests come back. Our Europa League round of 16 opponents on injury news. So Real Sociedad, they are going to be without one of their key players for our match next week. They're going to be without attacking midfielder Luka Sucic, Croatian attacking midfielder. He's going to be out for a couple weeks. Now, I'm not going to celebrate injuries. That's not why I'm saying that. It's injury news, and it does impact our match next week. So he'll be gone. That could help us. Obviously, Sociedad are a tough opponent. They're doing pretty well right now. I think they just won their match yesterday in La Liga, like 2-0 or something. But not the opponent I would have wanted in this round. I would have definitely chosen like Midtjylland or Akmar, but it is what it is. But yeah, they're going to be without a key player. Mazraoui, we're still waiting to see what comes happen. Darko, Sean, did you talk about canteen cuts and also toilet roll cuts? And I didn't talk about them, Darko, because again, until I know for sure what's happening, I don't like to talk about just rumors that are coming from just to me unreliable sources as of yet. When the Guardian writes about it and the Guardian source is just the Guardian understands, I'm not saying I automatically don't believe it. I'm just saying, okay, there is nothing here, nothing to talk about. It was like Samuel Butthurt's bullshit today about, Amorim and the coaching staff losing faith in Amorim. Everybody was so quick to deny and fight back against these reports last week that the players were losing faith in Amorim, but everybody seems to be so quick to believe these reports from Samuel Butthurt's that everybody's losing faith in Rasmus Højlund. Like, we can't have it both ways. We can't on one breath say this source is crap, we don't buy it, and the other breath say, nope, I believe that. That's called an agenda. That's called bias. That's called subjectivity. I'm not trying to judge anybody. I'm just pointing out the differences here. And so I did see the stuff about canteen cuts, but so far, again, the word is that Omar Barada and everybody was going to be having a meeting today. I think that meeting took place a little while ago. We haven't yet seen the results of that. But again, it was just the sources were just it's believed or Guardian understands. Like, that's not, to me, that's not a reliable source. So again, I don't believe it. I don't not believe it. I'm just waiting to see what actually comes out of this meeting before I start talking about it. Because you guys know, And I've said it many times because I might be boring, but I don't like to just jump into a rage and start stirring the pot and start whipping everybody up into an absolute fervor because of just reports like that, and that's just me. I'm just not here for that kind of drama. So again, call me boring if you want, call me sitting on the fence if you want, but that's just, I'd rather talk about stuff when we have actual stuff to talk about. But in that regard, anyway, I just don't like just doing that. So it is what it is. Let me see what we got here. Anthony had another assist for Real Betis this weekend. So there's that. That's 2 goals, 2 assists in 3 matches since joining Real Betis on loan. Then he got himself sent off though, so a little bit of a mixed bag. Get that transfer value up, my friend. Get us some more money because we need to try to recoup as much as we can. I still don't think we're going to get more than like 30 million for this guy, but it is what it is. But what's funny to me, I laugh because what's funny to me is the revisionism from a lot of the United fan base who have basically been hating on Anthony for the last several years, but then they're going to call out Ruben Amorim. They're going to call out the club. They're going to, because he's having a good time at Real Betis. So there's levels to this, folks. There's levels to football. Notice the Sancho FC crowd has disappeared back into the woodwork after realizing, oh, wait, this dude hasn't done anything for us in over a dozen games, like since joining Chelsea. Chelsea were all happy. They were all up in their feelings. They had that bass in their voice when he came in and got like an assist or something. And now they're like, oh, shit. Yep. Exactly. There's levels to this. It's not saying a player is bad because they can't hang in the Premier League or they can't hang at a big club in the Premier League like United. Real Betis is probably Anthony's level. Sancho, I don't think can cut it in the Premier League. I just don't think he can. I think he needs to go back to the Bundesliga. He needs to go to Spain. He needs to go to France. He needs to go someplace like that. I just don't think he wants to put in the physicality, and that's all there is to it. But Danny says 100% 35 would be nice. Yeah, if we can get up there. That's why I don't worry about Rashford. Rashford came on, obviously got a couple assists, or he had a goal and assist or something. Can't remember now off the top of my head. Fine, that's fine. If getting out of the pressure and the toxicity of United is what helps you, that's fine. Go do that. I don't care anymore. We're gonna get money for you. That's I care about my club at this point. Let's go do fine. I'm happy if Rashford's doing well. I want to increase his transfer value. Now Villa have the option of 40 million. Rashford doesn't want to play for Villa. He's there on loan right now. Rashford wants to go to Barcelona. So we'll see what happens. But Mad Hatter, welcome back, man. Says some players just aren't suited for league. And that is what it is. Sometimes it's the wrong manager. Sometimes it's just the league. Unfortunately, you're not going to know until you're like a year or two into it. And then it just happens. That's just the way it is. So it's not saying they're bad. It's just, this is life. We'll have some more to talk about tomorrow because Erik ten Hag apparently sat down with an interview with SEG, which is the sports agency that he kind of works. I think his brother owns it or something. I don't remember off the top of my head, but that interview is going to post tomorrow. So we'll see what sort of insights Ten Hag has to share about his time at United. I know a couple of little bits and pieces were circulating today. And everyone's trying to really just squeeze every last ounce they can out of those 3 sentences that they released. But if there is anything interesting, obviously we'll discuss that in tomorrow's show, kind of like what we've done with Benny McCarthy, Rena Haka, and things like that. But we'll see. There might not be anything interesting. But Robert Reed says we just always find those players that don't work. I mean, part of that is bad recruitment. Part of that is listening too much to managers. I think Erik ten Hag's talent identification left a little bit to be desired. I think that, Anthony, for Ten Hag, represented a project that he had started at Ajax and maybe wanted to see out because Anthony was very, very good at Ajax. He was also very young at Ajax, and it just doesn't work. Nicola Pepe, does anyone know where Nicola Pepe is these days? I don't. I really don't know. I think Sancho could very easily go that route as well. I could easily see Sancho going to Galatasaray or Fenerbahce or something if he doesn't, shape up, because I just don't think he can hang with the demands of what he's got to do in the Premier League. But it is what it is. You guys let me know what your thoughts are on some of that. Some good news today. Not a whole lot. Probably going to get more in the next couple of days. And obviously we'll be back tomorrow for our match preview. Darko, is the Erik ten Hag interview planned at this time when things are at the worst peak for us? I mean, he's sat down and did it today. They'll release it tomorrow. So it's an SEG thing. I mean, Hoyland is represented by SEG as well, so I don't know why they would want to hurt the club when one of their players is at the club still, but who knows? We do know, but you do make a good point, Darko. Sometimes the media does have news that they choose to sit on until the perfect opportunity to pile on the negativity presents itself, and then they just run with it. So again, you guys got to remember the way the media works. We can't complain about them one day and then believe everything they say the next day. You have to always add some context to it. So that's going to be it for me. Go check out yesterday's video on Ruben Amorim questioning, is he in over his head? Now, again, that wasn't me bashing him. It wasn't me saying for sure he is. To me, it was posing the question. So really good discussion came out of that video. I really enjoyed that chat with you guys. I'd love to do more videos like that. If you want to get involved in that kind of stuff and in terms of the kind of topics we discuss, go check out the memberships. Hit that like button for me, guys. Please hit the subscribe button if you are new to help us on our road to 3K. Really appreciate that. Thank you, everybody, for stopping by this morning and getting involved. You guys know I love hearing what you have to say. One more comment here. Robert Reed, if Eric Ten Hag is like Jose, Ollie, or LBG, he has an NDA for 18 months. This will be interesting. Well, so far, the only blurb that's come out really that has to do with that is that he misses Old Trafford. So I don't think he's going to be bashing anybody, but there will be some insight because did Rene Haka, did Benny McCarthy not have any NDAs? Because they've had some interesting things to say as well. But take it easy, guys. Enjoy your day. Stay warm, stay safe, and don't forget to come back tomorrow for the match preview for Ipswich. We'll figure out what's going on with Mizraoui and whatnot as well. So till then, take it easy. I'll talk to you later.